So now we're going to deal with a cone. If given the overall volume and one piece of information, how can I find the unknown information? So just like we did with the cylinder, we want to kind of recognize what we have. I know that V, the overall volume, is 64 pi, and I'm given this height, which is 3, so h equals 3, and I'm going to try to find this radius. So just like we did with the cylinder, I'm going to kind of set up the formula, plug in everything that I have, and then work backwards to figure out what I need. So I know the volume of a cone. It looks very similar to that of a cylinder, except for this 1/3 part, because a cone is just 1/3 the total volume of a cylinder. But other than that, it's pi r squared times the h. So I have the V and I have the h. So I'm going to rewrite this formula with what I have. I know that V is 64 pi. The 1/3 stays there. The pi stays there. I do not know my r, but I do know my h. So I'm plugging in everything I have. And notice that all this stuff on the right, all that is just getting multiplied together. So the first thing we do, it looks really intimidating, but if we just take a step back, break it down, the first thing you always want to check for, again, is what do I see on both sides that's the same that I can eliminate or ignore? Well, I see pi on both sides, so I'm going to ignore that. So I'll kind of rewrite what I have. That leaves me with 64 equal to 1/3 times whatever this r squared is times this height. Well, the right side I can actually shorten a little bit or simplify, because I have this 1/3 and I have this 3, and I can go ahead and just multiply those together. 1/3 of 3 is just a 1. So that 1/3 times 3, and I'll kind of write it up here, 1/3 times 3 is equal to 1. So that essentially kind of disappears, or in other words turns into a 1, so I could just write it as a 1 times r squared. So this is essentially saying whatever my r is, by squaring it, I get a result of 64. Another way maybe that might help is simply looking at it like this. R times r is 64. Well, what number times itself is 64? Well, that would be 8. So my missing radius is therefore an 8.